In this video, we're going to show you to install the gas tank straps on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located on top of your fuel tank. So once you have your hood open, go ahead and locate the fuse box just beside your battery. I'm going to pinch the tabs here, lift that up. Now you're going to have three sections of your fuse box over here. You want to go to the center section, and the third relay down and in is a 20 amp for the fuse, for the fuel pump fuse. I want to go ahead and locate that over here. And this is our center section. There's our 20 amp fuse. You want to grab a pair of pliers and pull that fuse. Once that's out, set that on top of the battery, and you can go ahead and close that down again. Now what we're going to do is hop into the vehicle, and we want to go ahead and start the vehicle. Now what we're doing here is we're depressurizing the system of our fuel. So you want to go ahead, if the vehicle starts, let it run until it just dies out. We're going to do this a couple different times here. At this point here, if the vehicle isn't starting, our system is depressurized. There's no more fuel in that system to go ahead and cause any pressure systems later on. And let's go ahead and disconnect our battery. We'll remove our ground terminal here. We're going to use a 13 millimeter on the nut side and a 13 millimeter on the bolt head side. Go ahead and loosen that. Give that a wiggle. Pull that off and set it aside. And on the bottom side of the bumper here, you're going to find 4 plastic push pins securing the back bumper. You're going to use our trim tool here. I want to try and get in here and pop that button out. There we go. And go ahead and remove these buttons. We want to do that for all 4. Using your 19 millimeter socket, loosen and remove the driver's side rear wheel lug nuts. Remove the wheel and set it aside. On the driver's side of our skid plate here, we have our wiring harness. We're going to use our trim tool. We want to go ahead and separate this. Right behind the coil spring here, we're going to find a 15 millimeter bolt. This secures that strap from our shield to the frame. On this bracket right here, we want to remove the retainer clip supporting that wire harness. So we're going to use our trim tool. Good, pop that off. In the back here, we have a connector attached to our little plastic retainer clip. We're just going to pop that retainer clip off. Remove the splash shield here. We're going to use our trim tool to pop out these plastic retaining buttons. Sometimes these break. If they do, you just have to source some locally to go ahead and replace these after. These 2 bottom ones have a center pin on them. I'll use a small pocket screwdriver, push out the center, or push it in. And that should allow you to go ahead and grab those and pull these out. Go ahead and set that aside. You want to go ahead and prepare this bracket to come out. We're going to use our trim tool. We need to separate this harness. So pop out the little retainer buttons here. And we have a hose with a bracket coming through with plastic push pins here. Let's go ahead and see if we can pop that out. You can see ours is kind of crumbling from rust here. So we're going to do the best to try and salvage some components out of this. Pop our hose out of this bracket. We have these two 13mm nuts here. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove those. Let's go ahead and get that upper one. If you follow this bracket up here, there's going to be a 13mm bolt on the inside. We're going to put our ratchet up in there with our socket. We want to loosen and remove that bolt. Now if you're able to get your bolt out of there, you want to go ahead and set that bolt aside. On this shield here, you're going to have 3 bolts. Now ours are rusted beyond recognition. They could be either 8s or 10mm. You want to go ahead and loosen and remove those there. And then on the bottom, there's going to be 3 more bolts. These are 10mm on the bottom. Loosen and remove those. Let's go ahead and remove this bracket. Set that aside. You want to gain access to the hose clamp, to the rubber hose, to your filler neck tube right here. We're going to use a 9/32 socket on our 1/4" ratchet to loosen and lower this hose clamp down. And once you get that loose enough, you could probably spin that clamp around, give it a little more room to move that ratchet. Now we do want to loosen this enough to lower that hose clamp down out of the way. Now right beside your fill tube, you have the vent line right here. We're going to use our pliers. I'm going to grab that. We're going to twist and pull that down and off. Well, we separate it from here instead of up top, not a big issue. We now want to go ahead and separate our filler neck. So I'm going to grab that, give it a twist, make sure we can break that free. Grab that hose and pull that down and off. Now we're going to take our filler neck here, and I'm going to just grab a towel here and tuck that in. I want to keep any debris from getting inside of that fill tube. And we have another component on the back side right here. It's round, like a canister style. There's 3 hoses going to the bottom of it and 1 coming out. The one coming out on the top side goes to the top of the charcoal canister. We want to go ahead and pull that off. So now you have this unit free like that. Now on the passenger side of our gas tank on the front side here, we have 2 11mm bolts here, or nuts. We want to go ahead and loosen and remove those. So at this point here, we went ahead and put our gas tank support underneath here. You can use your jack with some blocks of wood or something to that effect there to support the tank. Now you're not going to raise the vehicle off of this, you're just going to support it, so when we remove the bolts, the tank just doesn't drop down and crash on the ground. If your vehicle is equipped with a trailer hitch unit itself, the brackets supporting this also support the gas tank. If you do not have a factory trailer hitch or hitch at all, then the bolts for the tank are going to be a standalone setup. We're using an 18mm socket with our impact gun and extension. Get the second one over here. On the driver's side here, start removing the 3 bolts over here. There's a 4th bolt on each side that almost fits into a pocket and it's recessed. So you want to go ahead and loosen and remove these as well. Now that we have this one out, let's go ahead and repeat for the other side. Up behind your bumper cover, you're going to use an 18mm swivel socket to go ahead and get to that. Now on the passenger side here, we're going to pull that bumper cover back a little bit, and we have that other bolt on the trailer hitch receiver. I need to go ahead, loosen, and remove that. So at this point here, we're going to go ahead and lower the tank just a little bit with the hitch receiver. Before we drop down the gas tank any further, we want to go ahead and disconnect your trailer hitch wiring harness. That way it doesn't get caught up when we're lowering this down any further. The tank lowered down partially. What you want to do is come on over here. You're going to find your charcoal canister. There's one more vapor tube popped in here. So we're going to go ahead and pull that off. That is going to release almost all of our ports over here. Now right here we have a couple hoses. Want to pull these up and away. Make sure they're not going to get tangled with the tank as we drop it. Now there's an electrical harness that comes down and it runs down to a bracket on the front side. Want to go ahead and disconnect that connector. Now the electrical connector itself is held on by a little plastic tab. We're going to push the electrical connector towards the passenger side and slide it off of the retainer. You can see the little groove on the back side here that plastic clip slides into. It's going to give us better access to our locking tab here. Now we did go ahead and spray this down with some Penetrant to try and break some of the garbage out of there. And we're going to press in on the tab. There we go. On the passenger top side of the tank, we're going to locate our fuel pump and sending unit over here. Now there are 2 lines that come into the top side. We need to disconnect these lines from the top of the tank. It's going to be easier for us to go ahead and remove the passenger side rear wheel, so we can go ahead and get our tool up inside, reach up on top and separate these lines. Using our 19mm socket, go ahead and loosen and remove the lug nut. Now that we have the lug nuts removed, remove the wheels, set it aside. Now on the top of our fuel tank here, we have the two lines here, and there are little retaining clips that lock the line to the top of the sending unit itself. There's a blue one here, there's a green one here. Now we did spray this down with some penetrant on here to try and loosen it up. What you want to do is be able to go ahead and spin these end connectors here, and the hoses themselves are spinning. And that tells us that we're not binding in place. Now these clips will pop out. You're going to rotate this to the point where you can get to the clips on the back side. And we can push these clips out. You can see that the clip itself came out, and you can push it back in. You push it back in, it snaps into place, so we're locked on. So just go back. I'm going to pop that clip off. Now before we started this job, we did depressurize the system, but that doesn't mean there may not be a little bit of fuel left in this line here. So we're going to use a towel. We're going to go ahead and grab that one with the blue connector and pull this off. That allows you to gain access to the other clip on that green one there and pop that up. With that separated, you can try and pull that off. I'm going to use a pair of hose pliers and wiggle that off gently. I'm just going to use a towel here to wipe up any residual gas here, kind of set it in there. And then we can go ahead and lower the tank. Just do a quick inspection around, make sure nothing else is still connected. It looks like we're pretty clear. Now we're going to go ahead and replace our gas tank strap. It's clearly rusted and broken. And you follow it down here to the gas tank skid plate, and there's a bolt going through, and there's a 13mm nut on the other side. So we're going to use a deep 13 socket on our impact gun, and we want to go ahead, loosen, and remove that nut. You can clearly see that the bolt is spinning, so we're going to grab a pair of locking pliers, hold on to that, and remove that nut on the other side. All right. Now that we have the nut and bolt removed, go ahead and remove the remainder of the strap. In order to access our bolt for the other strap over here, we need to go ahead and loosen the nut on the bottom for our trailer hitch receiver bracket. We need to remove that nut, and then we'll go ahead and pull this off, and it'll give us direct access to that bolt there. Watch your feet as this is coming off, because the trailer hitch will drop. The next step, you want to lift up this tank and pull it back so we can get the two forward portions of our tank straps removed from the skid plate. To do so, if you're by yourself, I'm just going to use a pry bar. You want to carefully lift up that tank and then slide that back just a little bit. Now at this point, we can go ahead and lower our strap down. And figuratively, we'll want to go ahead and pull that out. Here we go, like so. Do the same to the other side. You might have to give it a whack with the hammer. Break that rust free. Now before installing the new strap, you want to go ahead and clean out the position for it. You can run a vacuum if you want. But what we're going to do is going to feed our strap end up through. Once we have a general location, we'll do the same to the other side. And go ahead and slide our tank back into position. Go ahead and install your bolt and nut here. On ours, it was just rusted beyond use again, so we sourced a replacement nut and bolt. Get that started. I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the other side, and we'll go ahead and snug that down. Now, when tightening these straps down in place, you want to just make sure that the strap is snug holding the tank. You don't want to over tighten it and crush the tank. Make sure it's good and snug. Now at this point here, if you have your trailer hitch and it's in good condition, you want to go ahead and install that now. We found that ours was too rotted to safely put it back on and to utilize. So we're going to install our fuel tank and skid plate here without the trailer hitch receiver. At this point here, let's go ahead and raise up our gas tank into position. Now before we get too high, let's go ahead and get to the top of the fuel tank and install our fuel lines. Now on the top of the tank, I'm going to pop off our caps here. The line with the green lock fits on this one here. Press down our lock, and we do the same for the blue one. Want to make sure that our electrical connector is heading over towards the passenger side. Now at this point here, we're going to get our tank up a little bit closer. I just want to go ahead and position this. Get our gas tank lined up. Go ahead and grab our connector here. Go ahead and plug this in. There it is, just clicked into place. Push that lock on over. Go ahead and install your connector in the bracket. All right, go ahead and push the buttons through for your fuel pump connector here. We'll install our differential vent tube. And put on our vent tube to our middle port on our charcoal canister. We'll pull down our fuel filler neck here. Let's go ahead and install this one here. Push this down and on. Line this up here. Pull out our towel. Install our filler neck tube. Now with that lined up, I'm going to go ahead and jack up the tank just a little bit more. That's going to give us a little more flexibility for that hose to pop on there. Go ahead and push that hose up and on there. Go ahead and put your hose clamp up into place. And we'll go ahead and snug that down. And we'll go ahead and snug that down pretty good. Don't want to have any vapor leaks from this or fluid leaks. Now go ahead and tuck these hoses on the back side of this bracket here. I'm going to pull those over and then feed this up and over the skid plate area, just like so. Let's go ahead and raise up our tank. And so let's line up our holes onto the frame. On the back side of our tank on the driver's side, I'm going to install the shorter bolt on this bracket. Now, the tank itself has a little bit of leeway. We can go ahead and wiggle that around a little bit. Go ahead and get that started. Thread it in as far as you can. And go ahead and get a couple bolts started on our skid plate. We'll put a little bit of anti-seize compound on the threads for that. And then we have two more on the back side here. Now go ahead and wiggle the tank around a little bit here. And go ahead and get those bolts started. And on this heat shield here, you want to make sure that you have your retainer clips in place. You want to position this, get that up in place, get those bolts started. We did have to replace ours because the old ones were just rotted and broken. Snug these two down. I'm going to raise up our tank the rest of the way, make sure that it's fully seated, and we'll go ahead and tighten down our bolts. Install our retainers here for our harness. Tighten down this bracket bolt here. Now our harness tab here broke. It's just old and brittle. So we're going to use a wire tie. I'm going to go ahead and just run this around. This is basically just to keep the harness out of the way of traveling suspension. Just want to snug it up. It doesn't have to be super tight, just take up the slack on it. I'm going to install our bracket here. Now when you're installing this here, This unit right here needs to screw to this bracket. So you're going to put 3 bolts in here. Ours, you can see the plate is totally rotted. We cannot reinstall the hardware there. So we're just going to install the 2 on the top. And once you have those installed, you want to come on down, install the 3 bolts down below for the vacuum unit down below, and then install the 3 on the bottom and the rest of your brackets to secure to the body itself. Install the harness bracket right there. Line up the mud guard. I'm going to install some push pins here. Now we can lower our gas tank jack. And we'll remove that. The next thing we want to do is install the buttons securing the bumper to the skid plate shield. Install the wheel. Once you have the wheel in place, we're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand. Let's go ahead and snug those down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Bring it up. Set it into place. And we're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand first. Once we have all the lug nuts on, let's go ahead and snug them down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Open up that fuse box. Take that 20-amp fuse and install that back where it was. Close that up. Reconnect your battery. Install the negative battery cable. Make sure it goes down all the way. We'll tighten the bolt, and you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.